Yeah, so, all right, so I did have the ones with the 40 to 49, they were down lower. So this was putting my Saturn to Saturn using the ephemeris. When you do it on the printout, you have to mark it up. When you're working with these ones, you don't highlight it because you're going to be using these sheets again and again. So you don't mark them up. You just notice them and write them down on your sheets. So you're bypassing the old computer, just looking at this, seeing this, oh, you're writing down on the lines, this month, this month, this month. It's just as good as computers, just as accurate. You're looking for a couple months phases. You're going to get the main period. If it's a week or so extra or less, doesn't matter that much because you're in that area, in that vicinity. So you can see the 7 degrees Leo, Saturn to Saturn. You see the 3 hits. Then you go along 7 years later, when it's in Scorpio, you see the 3 hits. Then you go forward. Oh, I didn't have the next one done. It's in 57. So I just started, then 62. You can see them every 7 years being written on a chart. So you don't have to, I marked it up so you can see it, but when you're following these along, you're just looking at them, and as soon as you got it, you write it down on the line it's supposed to be in on the graph. Wow, without going to computer, you got your natal chart in front of you, you're looking at the position of Saturn, you take the graph, you look at it, there's this, oh, there it is, October, November, you write it down for that aspect. You just have to remember what Saturn starts in Leo, so you have to remember the aspect that it's making by sign. You know, Saturn's in Leo, the squares will come from Scorpio or Aquarius, the opposition will come from Taurus, the conjunction will come when it's in Leo. So then just looking through the ephemeris for looking at those dates and for those specific degrees and seeing what dates they had, what months they happened on. So working the graphs, it's one day I'll get this done so the computer does it. Like I have a program, but I'm going to have to get some money and get 2 or 3 programmers to work with me to set it up like apps so they can all work together. So these things can be done on computers and set up so the graphs can be made. And your bio could be filled in and the graphs could be made and these things could be put together without having to do it a long way. But if it's all done for you, it's there, you can study it. But you're learning as you go. You're navigating through these textures. You're learning to use the ephemerises. You're learning to see the dates, times. You're learning a lot about time and effort and space. And it helps develop your perspective on how long something lasts when it happens. It can happen faster, but when you do it faster, and you just got a computer print with everything on it right away, yeah, you'd still work it. You can get the computer print out with all this information and sit down and look at it, write down things beside it. But you're not going to remember it the same way as if you see it with this graph. When you see it with this graph, it's vivid, it stays with you. Then when you're looking at a chart and you're working without this information, you can think like this as automatic thinking, as a basic standard against which to work. So this is my way of working with sequences across life. It's not just a random do a chart for the moment. This defines everything that's going on. So compare it to your natal chart, and you can do that, but you're not going to see the sequence. It's like music is going from one phase to another phase to another phase with certain notes coming. It's what went before, what came up, and built up. So it really is a music. It's a waves of music, scales going on that are playing that you're dancing to. This is the music. I mean, astrology is you would have to say, nature is the art of God, but astrology is like the music of God that nature dances to. No. Okay, so I found these little ephemerises. I handmade these. I went through a regular 2 different 100-year ephemerises. On the first of each month, I entered in each one individually and then had to check them and do them. But I did this because there wasn't any book like this. And I wanted to have them all organized like this so I could see them on a page and get 20 years at a time. I mean, if you just use your regular ephemeris, you're flipping through pages all the time. This allowed me to do, I've done maybe 400 or 500 2 or 3 hour talk shows on TV, on radio and TV. Someone give me their chart, I look in the ephemeris, I just look at the chart, have to calculate it in my head, and then I'd probably have this, I have this pretty well memorized, but I have this sheet in front of me, and I could see what's happened the last 4 or 5 years to the planets in their chart, and I could do a reading within a few minutes and be ready for it. And it was very impressive. It was very popular. It's just these type of things changed when digital radio came in and and computer and astrology became available in a lot of mass ways. Anyways, by the time they started getting back to some of this, it was already diversified a lot, and people I knew in radio had changed, and I didn't have the connect. I've done a few digital shows, but it's but I have done. I mean, I've really worked these sheets, so I'm not asking you to do anything that I haven't done 1,000 times over. You know, and saving time when you're having to, like, sometimes, you know, when you're working with a person's chart in advance and you got time to work with it before you see them, you got to take this time to spend this, to look at the cycles, to see. And if you don't have something, what happened then? What happened then? What happened here? I would always get a little bio from people. Where's your birthday? Where are you born? And they mention 10 or 20 things that the month and year when major things happen in your life. Where would I take it? I see that graphic, I'd put it right onto the graph. Well, then I have the basic backbone or outline of that person's life right there. I'm ready for that consult. So it's really convenient when you can work on a chart beforehand. Seeing a chart and seeing what's going on, you can do that in a couple of minutes. But knowing what to say, knowing what that person needs to hear, what they're ready for, that takes, I spend an hour or so before I see someone just to know how am I going to reach them? How am I going to explain it? How's that person going to listen to this? And that's the natal chart work. Knowing the natal chart allows you to really understand the character. So if a planet's if Saturn is touching a planet in your chart, it's touching that planet in that sign, in that house, it's affecting that planet and each category in that sign and each category in that house, and it's triggering off the stress that's involved with that planet from the aspects made to it. So at first it seems like it's all too much spinning, but it's like trying to be a conductor before you learn to play an instrument. First you learn an instrument, then you want to be a conductor. You got to learn to hear 5 or 6 instruments playing different things and knowing who's doing what. Then you got to hear different instruments and you start putting together till you're conducting the whole symphony. And you're hearing all the different patterns going on. So this is the symphony of life. And all these rhythms, like each planet's like an instrument. And they're moving around and they're affecting it, sometimes harmoniously, sometimes with discord. And they're making your grand opera piece. That's your life. That's the transits. We dance to it. It's the music said. What you do with it's up to you. You can go to a dance and say, no, I'm not going to dance. You can go to a dance and sort of dance a little bit. You can go to dance and try and push and dance everywhere. It's up to you what you do with it, but you can see this is the dance going on, tuning into it. If we go out the door, we want to know what the weather is before we see whether we have to dress warm or cold or whatever. It's no different. It's just looking at a weather forecast. It just allows us to see a weather forecast. In fact, the study of these planets and how they react to each other is the very mechanics of weather for each planet. So there's when you get up to heliocentric astrology, everything, you can start seeing the weather on the planet. But we're watching the light and the darkness, the seasons coming in. We're watching the weather and how we're part of it and how it affects us. It's a weather forecast, not any big hocus pocus magical thing. It's just practical, simple thinking. To take the time to look at each cycle, to look at each thing practically, and just to do it, you'll be well informed and you won't have any trouble doing consultation. You'll be able to give, with Saturn, you'll be able to give responsible advice. So we're going to see how it is. Right now, we got a little room to talk. I'm just trying to see what else I got. So this just puts all the ones. Mine was up to 2042. So I did up to 90, up to 100 years, being the optimist that I am. And I just marked them on, but it's not that often. So when you're working with your sheets, you're not marking up the sheets. You're noticing these 2 dates and you're marking immediately onto your Saturn graph. That's fast. You know, so like I said, you can using these sheets on the Saturn graph and just knowing the 2 positions, you can do this in 15 minutes is not a big deal. Then you'll study it and you add things to it. It'll take a lot. You'll spend more time on it. That's embellishing it, making it come alive again. Or just Crawford's. Instead of when I was 17, it was a very good year. Oh, when I was 17, what year was that? Oh, it's that year. So not only can you see what events were going on astrologically in that year and time exactly, you can look at the history and life, the weather, the circumstances in that place that you were living. You can see how the world around you is affecting you, the news, the things going on affecting you at that time too. They're all these layers interdependent, and they're all moving in terms of in tune with the sun, moon, the planets. They do. It's what nature is. Okay, so I think about it, these. Okay, we're done for those. Now, am I? Okay, now, okay, so we're done. I'm pretty well done for what I wanted to get to for this week. But we can try and experiment a little bit. If I want, I'm going to turn some of these things off. We're coming back to this. It's the difficulty in getting into reactions on the from you being part of it is one, I got to get enrolled in doing it. To get questions and answers, I can turn you all on and we're hearing each other, and then there's just all the background noise from 3 places can be on. I'm just gonna do that right now to see. I'm just turning your volumes on, so anything you say, it's going to be heard, you know. Like, so if you have any questions or you want to ask any questions, say anything, you're welcome to. Not everybody's, like a lot of people are different time zones, so not everybody's participating directly. Some people are getting the video later tonight and listening to it at their own time. But these are the basic, it's not a big deal. It's just slow it down, one thing at a time. You calculate conjunctions, squares, oppositions, 2 or 3 hits. You find the dates, you get it on the graph. Once you've done it, you don't have to go back to the ephemeris. Whew. Okay, so no one's talking that much right away, so you weren't expecting to have something to have to ask or say. That's okay. This is just, these are things, you can almost eyeball the Saturn cycle, 7-year cycles. So you see what age someone is. You know, so in their age, you can see if they're coming up to their Saturn return or coming up to their Saturn opposition or coming up to puberty or midlife crises, or you can see these things just without even knowing the chart, just by adding the years that a Saturn cycle takes and knowing the 4 sections. You can see where are you in your phases in your life, in the ages that you are. You can work it by ages, but you're still trying to get back. What are you going through now? When you're working with a chart, you need to have the anchor of the dates. If this is on this date, this from here till there, don't worry, this is only lasting for on and off for a year. It'll be finished with then, and by then you've got through this aspect, you know, or it hasn't started yet. It's, oh boy, this is a bigger thing, probably fitting for other aspects, but I remember, just made me think of it now. I remember this one lady came to see me to get her chart done. I was talking to her, and she had a new number of really difficult aspects coming in, not just Saturn, a number of difficult aspects coming up. And things were looking really difficult for the next couple of years. And I was saying, you got a really difficulty for next year. I don't know what's going on, but there's a lot of danger and difficulty around you. Not something I would normally say. Well, she said, well, she was married to a mafia leader, and she was having an affair with a young man who knew none of that stuff. Okay, well, she's having this affair with a young man. She's middle-aged, and her husband doesn't know. With all that, he's going to find out. He's going to be on the young man's thing. I said, there's going to be trouble. You're going to have to end this. Somebody's going to get hurt out of this. I said to her. You know what she said to me in the consultation? How much time have I got? How long can I get away with it? When's the last day I can see him?